Okay, so this video is going to be how to kind of get started with lights in Maya, what lights are available to use, when should you use them, what lights I never use. I use a lot of Arnold lights and stuff like that, so I tend to stay away from a lot of these lights except for the spotlight and directly when I need the certain lights are not really my go-to. My go-to is kind of my spotlight with some Arnold render with some Arnold um, light. So that's kind of my method. But knowing where to go and use these and how to kind of like display this stuff is important. These are your Maya lights right here. You got your ambient light. It's kind of doesn't really come from any source. Basically, it just lights everything. I'll kind of have this window up here. Seeing the explanation for them kind of helps. Actually, first of all, um, you have your scene. It's best to have a ground plane because basically, if you don't have a plane or any kind of backdrop, then you're not going to be able to see the light. It's just going to light the whole thing in here. But you can go in here and kind of test your lights, turn this light bulb right here, which a lot of people just overlook. So, like right now, I've turned my lights on. I don't have any lights in the scene, so everything is black. So, go to Create and go to your lights. You got your ambient light. And your ambient light kind of just comes from all over. Ambient light does not really come from any source. It just lights everything. It's a little hard to kind of use sometimes in my book. It's just, unless you kind of turn it down really low and just have it there, because it's kind of holding control for me. But if you go to your render, you can kind of see how it's working out. It's just basically lighting everything. And the intensity is not really that great. You have your attributes over here. You can turn it up. It starts to kind of come up. You can see it's kind of placed down here. So basically, probably kind of put it more over this way right here. You'd see it more from this side. You can change the color of these things. Let's turn it to a green. Everything's going to be green. So kind of an all over it. Usually it's best with these things just to kind of like crank them down. Just to have a few of them in your scene if you need to, if you've got like a little mood setting. Next you have a directional light, which is basically the light's coming from any source, or the light is coming from a certain point, certain direction. Directional light. Kind of move it up here. You can scale this. I like to scale this one up so I can see it. It doesn't really affect the intensity or anything. It just makes it bigger so you can see it. Now, if you notice, everything's shining, but he's got light on him right there. So now if you kind of rotate it around, the light's coming from up here, so you see the light kind of like pressing down, and you can see the light shine the ground up. And again, you can go and adjust stuff over here. You can actually change your lights over here too if you want to. Next is your point light, which basically the light comes from a source, but it's hard to kind of control it, I think, from one point. A little bit different than ambient light. Maybe if you've got like a light under a lampshade or something like that. Let's just put it back right there. He's holding a light. You could put this light inside like a candle or something like that. And last is basically the spotlight. Well, the spotlight, and then you got your Arnold lights. But my lights only is the spotlight. The Arnold render and your Arnold lights are located in the Arnold section. But I'm not going to talk about those right now. I just kind of want to concentrate on the Maya lights. So let's create a spotlight that is really cool. You have your area and your volume light, but I'm not going to talk about those. Mainly because I really hardly ever use them. So when you create a spotlight, this cone drops in here, and I want to expand this thing. This is the one probably you may use the most, is a spotlight. So I rendered kind of small up here so you can see it. So you can move this thing, and now you can see the spot illuminating from it. really get definitive with the spotlight. Um, Before you moved it, or actually anyway, now you could actually before you go to move it, you could press T, and now you have two controllers. And what that is, that's the target and the cone. So if you were to lift the cone up, the target can stay there. And you can move the target too, to where you need to. This is good for animating, in other words, because you can kind of animate these spotlights around, but not have to animate this thing right here. And your spotlight has your cone angle, penumbra angle, which is kind of the fall off, and then your actual drop off, which is kind of the inside illumination. But yeah, it starts to really looks nice there. Now, if you want to turn on shadows, shadows has to be actually activated down here. Use your ray trace shadows. Which actually, I think you need to go to your render settings. Yeah, turn that on. Now we got some shadows. So ray tracing, if you're doing a project and nothing's coming up, make sure you check this render settings area and make sure both of these are clicked on here. But that's not going to work in the Maya hardware. It just works for the Maya software, I believe. Oh, no, it does. Okay. And then you can do your radius and your depth limit, your shadow rays, your light radius. Kind of starts to get more blurry. Cool. Another fun thing to do with lights is you can actually add attributes to the actual mapping of it. So in other words, if you come up here to color, obviously you can change your color to whatever you want to, but you can go to the clacker, the checkerboard clacker right here, and you can add files to it. Say like you could add a noise to it, then just how you want your noise, and then if you go to render, now you've kind of got this cool coming through a window or a shadow. I think in class we mentioned about, oh yeah, or adding a file. Get a little closer. Cool. What if I wanted to go back in the spotlight? Gonna undo that. And I'm going to add a file. You could add any image basically to it, and it will reflect off of. These aren't really good images here. Let me find one. Let me see what we got here. I don't really have any images on my desktop as of right now. I got the Ghostbusters. Let's see, I thought I had. Find a texture. Window panes, glass windows. Looking for that design. Church windows. A cool design here. Some cool colors coming through it. That's cool. Stained glass windows. Get texture. Let's try this one right here. It's not a very big one, but I'm going to try it. Save image, wherever you want to save it at. Now it's added into my light. Let's see what it looks like. Cool. So any kind of like light illuminating through them, it's going to project that out basically on it. Then you could kind of add, you could actually, I think if you mess with the intensity, it cranks it up. Just makes it more brighter, which sometimes you have to kind of go lightly with. And obviously, there may be other lights in the scene right there to kind of light it up. So that's my lights, kind of in a nutshell. Just remember, if you want to demo it, turn them on. If you turn it off, you're just going to be running your default lights. The more lights you start adding, the more your renders are going to kind of like take a little while to do. So be cautious with it. You want to turn your gamma off there. So whenever your render comes through, you'll know what it's basically going to look like. So that's how to create drop lights in there and manipulate it. And we'll get further in with the Arnold lights, because what I like to do is I always like to go with this this Arnold, adding in a sky dome light and then adding what they call an HDRI image-based lighting, and then adding in my spotlights to kind of intensify stuff, or my mesh lights to like light up stuff like lamps and light bulbs and stuff like that. And we'll get further in depth with the Arnold lights later. So okay, well, hope this helps, and thanks for watching. Bye.